Hey everyone, ready to explore something pretty fascinating.
I think so.
Today we're diving into cohabitation.
Ooh.
Couples living together without getting married.
Hmm.
It's a growing trend, and we're going to see how it's viewed across different cultures and generations.
Sounds interesting.
So is it a universal thing, or does your background play a big role?
Big question.
To help us figure this out, we've got some excerpts from a podcast called Cohabiting Without Marriage, a cultural and generational divide.
Okay.
Sounds pretty relevant, right?
Healthy.
So
Yeah.
when we say cohabitation, what are we really talking about?
Basically, it's when two people in a romantic relationship decide to share a home and build a life together,
Okay,
but they haven't gotten married legally.
got it.
It's a choice. And it's becoming super popular globally, especially where marriage rates are going down.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's
But-
not just about skipping the wedding. It's about changing values, right?
You got it.
Like, what does love commitment even mean?
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that acceptance of this isn't universal.
Oh, really?
It really varies.
Oh,
It's like a cultural kaleidoscope.
okay. I like that.
Yeah, same elements, but different patterns everywhere you look.
So, what are some of the biggest differences we see globally?
Okay, so let's start with Scandinavia.
Okay.
Like Denmark, for instance.
Yeah.
Over 80% of couples live together before they get married.
Wow.
And it's not seen as this rebellious thing.
Right.
It's totally normal. It's practical.
Mm-hmm.
See if you're compatible before you commit for life.
Like a test drive.
Exactly.
Okay.
But then
Yeah.
shift your focus to countries with a strong Islamic influence.
Okay.
Things are totally different.
Ooh.
Marriage is really important, both religiously and socially.
Right.
Living
Yeah.
together before marriage is often unacceptable.
Wow. So it's like defying those principles.
Exact-
That is a huge difference.
It is. Culture and religion really shape those views.
Definitely. And the contrasts keep going, right?
Oh, yeah.
What about South Asian cultures?
Yeah, where arranged marriages are common,
Right.
cohabitation is viewed negatively,
Huh.
disrespectful, or even scandalous.
It's amazing how these personal choices
Right.
are so tied to broader values.
Yeah.
You mentioned generational differences earlier.
Oh, yeah.
How do those fit into all of this?
Okay, well, imagine going back in time
Okay.
to before the 1970s.
Right.
Marriage was the thing back then.
Yeah.
It was like the symbol of adulthood,
Right.
commitment,
Yeah.
cohabitation.
Yeah.
Totally different story.
Really?
It was seen negatively,
Huh.
like you weren't fully committed.
Interesting.
Now fast forward to today,
Okay.
millennials and Gen Z, they're like,
Yeah.
marriage is optional.
Okay.
We value our choices
Yeah.
and being practical.
Mm-hmm.
They see cohabitation as a practical way
Yeah.
to test things out.
See if it works.
Is it-
Before making that big commitment.
Right.
So it's not about following a set path.
Nope. It's more about figuring out what works for you and your partner.
Interesting.
Yeah. And this shift,
Yeah.
it's not about rejecting commitment. It's
Mhm.
about redefining it.
Ah, so it's still important.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
But it looks different.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's about what fits for you, not just blindly following tradition.
Mm-hmm. But that can lead to some friction, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Especially when you have different generations in the same family
Exactly.
with different opinions.
It's like a cultural earthquake.
Whoa.
And those aftershocks are hitting families everywhere.
Okay, so give me an example. How does this play out in real life?
Okay, so picture a young couple in the U.S.
Okay.
They decide to move in together.
Mm-hmm.
It might be totally normal for their friends,
Yeah.
but their parents or grandparents who are more traditional,
Right.
they might be like, this isn't right.
So even though it's more accepted, there's still that judgment.
Totally.
And-
And that can create conflict.
Yeah.
Like they don't understand you or accept you.
Right.
Now imagine that tension,
Yeah.
but 10 times worse
Okay.
in cultures with arranged marriages.
Right. Where it's just not done.
Yeah, choosing to cohabit there
Yeah.
could be seen as huge rebellion,
Wow.
leading to bigger rifts in families.
So it really shows how personal choices
Yeah.
about relationships
Mm-hmm.
are tied to cultural expectations
For sure.
and family dynamics.
Exactly.
This is all fascinating.
Right.
But what's next?
That's the big question.
Will these divides just disappear, or are we headed for more clashes?
Well, the future of cohabitation,
Yeah,
it's not exactly clear.
I like that.
Yeah. So what factors might shape how things evolve?
Good question.
Well, in societies that value individual choice and freedom,
Okay.
like many Western countries,
Yeah.
cohabitation will probably keep growing. marriage may become less central to defining a relationship,
Interesting.
and people might seek alternative ways to show commitment.
So more couples choosing cohabitation long term.
Could be.
What about legal recognition?
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
It's possible, especially as governments try to adapt
Right.
to changing family structures.
That makes sense. But what about cultures with strong traditions? Will they ever accept it?
It's hard to say for sure. Change happens slower in those societies.
Right.
The stigma might stick around for a while.
So we're looking at a mixed bag.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Some embracing it, some taking baby steps, and some holding on to tradition.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Globalization,
Yeah.
evolving gender roles, all that,
Mhm.
it can influence even the most traditional cultures.
So even there, we might see some cracks.
Exactly.
Wow.
The landscape of relationships is always changing.
Yeah.
And cohabitation shows us how culture and generations are reshaping our views on love and commitment.
This has been really insightful.
It
Bet
has.
our listeners hooked.
Yeah.
But before we move on,
Yeah.
what surprised you the most?
You know what really gets me?
What's that?
It's the tension between individual choice and societal expectations.
Ah.
It's like trying to find that balance
Mhm.
where your desires
Yeah.
match up with cultural norms.
And sometimes they don't.
Sometimes it's a total mismatch.
It's a struggle that resonates with everyone.
It does across cultures and generations.
It's a universal story unfolding.
It is, and it's not over yet.
Right.
That's why we need to have open minds and be willing to understand different views.
Couldn't agree more. We've covered a lot in this first part.
We have.
Definitions, cultural contrasts, generational shifts, even some family drama,
Oh, yeah.
but there's more to uncover.
Definitely, we've just scratched the surface.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll go deeper into those clashes and see how governments are dealing with all of this.
Should be interesting.
It will be. Back again for more on cohabitation.
We are.
It's not just a theoretical discussion.
No, not at all.
This is about real couples trying to build a life.
Real people.
And sometimes their choices clash with expectations.
Oh, yeah.
And that can cause some problems.
You can.
So when we talk about the consequences
Yeah.
of these cultural and generational differences, what comes to mind?
Well, emotional stress for sure.
Yeah, makes sense. Imagine feeling judged by your own family.
Exactly. Just because of how you choose to live.
Right, and sometimes it goes beyond just judgment, right?
It can,
Or
unfortunately.
it happens in more extreme cases.
Well, in extreme cases, it can lead to estrangement from family.
Wow, that's intense. Are there any examples of this kind of conflict?
Definitely remember when we talked about arranged marriages,
Yeah, where cohabiting before marriage is a big no-no.
right? In those cultures, young people who choose to cohabit,
Mm-hmm.
they might face immense pressure to conform.
And if they don't?
Well, they could be disowned or cut off from family support.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It really shows how deeply rooted those values are.
It does. And even
Yeah.
though those extreme consequences
Yeah.
might be less common in Western societies,
Right.
the emotional toll can still be significant.
Yeah, even in cultures that are generally more accepting, I
yeah.
imagine there's still potential for tension.
Oh, definitely. Imagine a young couple all excited about moving in together.
Okay.
They tell their parents or grandparents,
Yeah.
and they're met with like a lukewarm reaction.
Ouch. It's gotta sting.
It does. And it can strain those relationships,
Yeah.
make it hard to talk openly about love and commitment.
It's like cohabitation disrupts the traditional script
It does.
and forces everyone to rethink their beliefs.
Right. To try and understand different perspectives.
Yeah, and this change isn't just happening at a personal level, right?
You?
Governments and legal systems are grappling with it too.
Absolutely. As cohabitation becomes more common,
Yeah.
governments face pressure to update laws.
Okay, what are some of the legal challenges?
Well, property rights are a big one.
Okay.
If a cohabiting couple breaks up,
Yeah.
how do you divide their assets?
Right, there's no marriage contract to guide that,
Exactly. Things can get really messy.
especially if they didn't make any prior arrangements.
Exactly. And inheritance is another tricky area.
Okay.
If one partner passes away,
Yeah,
the surviving partner might not have automatic inheritance rights.
right, unlike married couples.
Exactly. And it's not just about money either.
What else?
Healthcare decisions,
Okay.
parental rights.
So who makes medical decisions if one partner is incapacitated?
Right. And what rights and responsibilities do they have towards their kids?
Those are tough questions.
They are. And they require careful consideration.
So lawmakers have to find a balance, right?
Yes, they do.
They have to uphold existing laws about marriage and family.
But they also need to protect the rights of those who choose different paths.
Right, like cohabitation.
Exactly. It's like building a bridge between the old and the new.
Yeah, trying to adapt without completely overhauling the system.
A delicate balance for sure.
So are there any countries leading the way in legal recognition?
There are actually several countries, mainly in Europe,
Okay.
that have taken steps to grant cohabiting couples similar rights as married couples.
That's great. Can you give us some examples?
Sure, France has something called the PCS.
What's that?
It's a legal contract for couples,
Okay.
both same-sex and opposite sex,
Got it.
to formalize their relationship and get some legal rights.
So it's like a middle ground.
Exactly. It gives them tax advantages,
Okay.
inheritance rights, even some social benefits
Interesting.
that were previously only for married couples.
It's a step towards recognizing different ways to build a life together.
It is, and other countries like Sweden and Denmark
Yeah.
have similar schemes.
It seems like things are changing, even if slowly.
They are, but we have to remember these changes.
Mm-hmm.
They often face resistance,
Mm-hmm.
people who hold on to traditional values.
Right. They see marriage as the only real commitment.
Exactly. It's that cultural tug-of-war.
Yeah, with different sides pulling in opposite directions.
The conversation about cohabitation is far from over.
Yeah, it feels like we've just scratched the surface.
We have.
I want to bring it back to our listener for a second.
Good idea. This isn't just an abstract discussion.
Exactly. So, listener, what's resonated with you the most?
Have you seen these clashes firsthand?
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Your experiences are valuable to this conversation
Get ready for part 3, where we'll explore the future of cohabitation.
and what it might mean for love, relationships, and family.
We're back for the final part of our deep dive on cohabitation.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It has, exploring all these cultural and generational shifts.
Yeah, from those contrasts to the legal challenges we talked about.
Exactly, even family conflicts, all because of couples living together without tying the knot.
It's fascinating how much there is to unpack.
It is, and now it's time to look ahead. What does the future hold for cohabitation?
Crystal ball time.
Kinda, will it become the norm, or will marriage make a big comeback?
Predicting the future of relationships is like a guessing game,
Right.
but based on everything we've seen,
Yeah.
cohabitation will probably become even more popular,
Okay.
especially in those cultures that really value individual choice.
Right, so we might be headed towards a world where living together before marriage, or even instead of marriage, becomes totally common.
It's possible. And that could change a lot of things.
Like what?
How societies see commitment, family structures,
Okay.
even the laws that govern relationships.
So let's imagine for a second.
Okay.
What if cohabitation does become the dominant model? How would that change things?
Well, one big change could be the importance of marriage itself.
Interesting. You mean like less pressure to get married?
Yeah, exactly. And
Wow.
less stigma around staying single.
Okay, so more relationship diversity,
Exactly. People could choose what works best for them.
whether it's marriage cohabitation or something else entirely.
Right. But that brings up another question.
What's that?
Legal rights and protections.
For couples who don't marry.
Exactly. If cohabitation is the norm,
Yeah.
legal systems would need to catch up.
To make sure those couples have the same rights.
Exactly. Especially things like property inheritance, parental rights.
Right, like those countries we talked about,
Yeah.
France with their PASS system, a more inclusive approach.
Right. Acknowledging different ways to build families.
Yeah, and this shift wouldn't just affect laws, right?
Nope. It could impact culture and social attitudes too.
So older generations might start to view cohabitation differently
Possibly less judgment and more acceptance.
as it becomes more common.
Right. Less taboo, more mainstream.
But that requires a change in mindset, right?
It does. People would have to be open to different relationship models.
To let go of those old beliefs about what a proper relationship is.
Exactly. It's like we're all in this giant societal seesaw,
Ooh, I like that.
trying to balance tradition and progress, individual choice and collective values.
Finding that balance is going to be key
It is, and it all comes down to communication,
to listening to each other
understanding different perspectives.
and recognizing that there's no one right way to do relationships. I think that's a major takeaway from our deep dive.
I agree.
Relationships are always evolving,
They are, and cohabitation is a perfect example.
of how all these forces,
Societal, cultural,
they're
individual.
all shaping how we connect with each other.
And as we move forward, we need to be curious,
Empathetic and open to learning.
whether we marry cohabit or forge our own path.
The important thing is to find love,
Build those connections and create fulfilling relationships.
however we define them.
Well said.
Well, listener, we've reached the end of our cohabitation expedition.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It has, and wherever you stand on this topic,
Yeah.
the key is to foster understanding
Respect different choices.
and celebrate the many ways love and commitment can exist.
Absolutely. Well, until next time,
Keep exploring those questions and keep those conversations about relationships going.
thanks for joining us.
We'll see you on our next deep dive.